In my 5 years as a real estate investor, I've seen some very unethical things. Heck, even when I was a licensed real estate agent, I've seen some very unethical things. So the question shouldn't be, is wholesaling ethical? The question should be, are you?
There's a problem with the weather.
Hey guys, it's Max, and today we're going to explore a question that I've received many times and a question that I've actually addressed many times. Matter of fact, at We Live 20 in Atlanta, we had an entire panel about the ethics of wholesaling. Before we talk about wholesaling being ethical, you need to understand what wholesaling actually is. And it's very simple. It's when a buyer contracts a property from a seller at a price, finds an interested party that's willing to pay more, and sells the interest or the contract on that property and keeps the difference. It's that simple, but I went more in detail. You can click on this link up here to go watch a video that I did, what is wholesaling. So now that you understand what wholesaling is, let's talk about what you really do. As a wholesaler, you're there to solve a problem. 95+% of all properties are actually sold in the traditional way. And what I mean by that is for sale by owner or listed on the market with a real estate agent on your local MLS, multiple listing service. And that's where most properties are transferred, commercial and residential. There's a small gap of properties that don't fit that criteria, where somebody wants to sell a property fast because they've inherited it, they're going through a divorce, they're moving. There's many, many reasons why somebody doesn't want to take the traditional route of selling their home. One reason is some homes are just so much in disrepair that real estate agents don't want to list it. I know, I used to be one. Most real estate agents only want to list the pretty, biggest, best houses in the area that they're a real estate agent in. So the small 4 to 5% of homes that are transferred each year that are paid for cash and are sold very quickly, most of them are facilitated through a wholesaler. So I started this business as a wholesaler back in late 2016, and I'm still a wholesaler. I do flips, I own properties, I have rentals, multifamily, and commercial. So with that being said, wholesaling can and is very ethical. But let's go back to the topic we talked about before. Are you ethical? There's many things you can do in any industry when it comes to sale to maybe misguide a client or a potential client on should or should they not do something. We know in many industries, such as even attorneys, most attorneys lose their license because they're not ethical with the funds that they get from their clients. It's a misuse of funds. So it really boils down to the person. Let me give you an example that can be ethical or unethical. You meet an elderly lady that wants to sell her condominium that hasn't done any updates since the 70s. Now she's in a pretty good area, so homes that are renovated that take $100,000 in renovation could go for a lot more than what she has in it. Now you have the option to put the house under contract and make maybe $20,000 on a wholesale deal, or you can devalue the property and make $50,000 or $100,000 on the deal. One, leaving the elderly lady not knowing what her true value of her home could be with the potential repairs, and essentially just trying to swing for the fences and hit a home run every time. Now, some people will say, hey, that's perfectly fine. They signed a contract. I think that's what makes this industry unethical at certain times is when, yeah, you can make $100,000, but what's wrong with making 20 or 30 or 40,000, and you can do it ethically by showing the person what their property is actually going to be worth at the end. And number two, make sure you're solving every single problem for the person. I can tell you many, many times on more fingers and more toes than I have when I went into a house and I was willing to take a $15,000 or $20,000 assignment versus somebody else who wanted to do a $30,000 or $50,000 or $60,000 assignment. Because I laid out all the things to the seller, gave them all their options, and told them what was the best price I can pay for the house. Now, sometimes people are just gonna give you properties at very, very low prices because they want absolutely nothing to do with them. That's great. Those are where you're gonna make your big spreads, your big margins. But if you're deceiving in any way, if you're misguiding in any way, because when you walk into the house, you become that expert. And if you're just trying to make a buck, you shouldn't be in this industry. The same goes for listing agents that are licensed and realtors, and the same goes that for investors. You can make a whole lot of money on a flip if you take a whole lot of risk, or you can make a reasonable amount and still keep your ethics. And that's probably the main thing that people can say that is negative about this business. There's been many news stories. We covered some at our Atlanta event where just some people felt like you made too much money. Now, I don't agree with all these stories, but some you can actually be more transparent with your client to tell them what their property is going to be worth so that you don't walk away with the biggest bag and you guys can equally share some of the profits. Remember, you got to leave some meat on the bone for everybody along the way. The flipper is going to invest money in buying the property. The flipper is going to invest money in actually fixing the property, and then they're going to go along and sell it. So you want to make sure that you do everything that's ethical to where you leave money on the table for everybody. You solve a problem and you walk away with a check for doing so. So one of the big reasons why I keep going back to the elderly lady. Anytime you need a barometer test to see if you're doing something ethical, think about, will you do this to your grandma? And that was the main thing we talked about in Atlanta. Would you do what you're doing to this seller to your own grandmother? And if the answer is yes, and you pass the sniff test, then go for it. If not, then don't do it. Because when you're trying to solve a problem for this elderly lady, if she wants to, one, go into a nursing home, or two, buy another piece of property, have you left her with enough money to do so? Does she even have enough money, equity in the deal to do so? Have you told her all her options? So you want to make sure that you just don't walk away and give her $20,000 or $30,000 if you could potentially give her 50 or 60 and you walk away with a good size amount as well. You need to think of the overall picture, because like I say in many videos, one good client turns into many good clients. So you need to treat every single property and every single client as a good base hit or a double. You don't need to swing for the fences, because that's when you start to put greed into this business. And if you're not in it for solving problems, then you're in it for the wrong reasons. Would you do this to your grandma? Always think about it. Would you do it to your grandma? Because if I won't, I don't. And another example is if you've reached out to a lead, you've got an appointment, and you start to talk to the seller and you start to build rapport. Are you willing to lose the deal because you've given the seller all their options? There's been many times. I had an older Chinese gentleman who wasn't sure of all the rules and the laws when it came to foreclosure. And he came to me begging and to help him, and he wanted to sell the house fast because he got a letter in the mail that he was going through foreclosure, and his wife had passed away and his daughter was in a great school that he lived there, and he didn't want to take her out of that school. Well, because he got this threatening letter from the bank, he thought that it was over and he was going to lose his house in the next couple weeks or 30 days. And I had to explain to him the whole process. And I said, to be honest with you, sir, you probably got a good 6 to 9 months to get your things together before you actually have to move. So if you feel like you can get a new job or come up with the money needed, you got 6 to 9 months. But here's what you really need to do. You need to be in communication with your mortgage company or your bank and do everything possible to keep this house. Now, on the other flip side, he was ready to sell it to me and walk away with enough money to get an apartment. And I knew that wasn't the ethical thing to do. I couldn't sleep at night. And the sniff test is, would I do it to my grandmother? And the answer was no. So I gave them his options and actually said, here's the number to my team. Here's the number to my paralegal person, because we have an in-house counsel. Talk with this person. They will guide you through the steps to make sure to do everything possible that you don't lose your home. And yes, I walked away with $0. I wasted some time at an appointment, but here's what actually happened. That guy became a singing bird for my company that helped him save his house so that his daughter can graduate from the high school she started from, and he can keep the house he bought before his wife passed away. And if you can do these things in this business, because not every deal you see is the deal for you. Sometimes you're there truly just to help somebody. And sometimes you're gonna walk away with big old checks. So keep that in mind. Would you do it to your grandmother? But if not, help the person out and walk away to live another day. Don't make this business muddy, because if you're unethical, then they'll say this business is unethical, and we'll do everything in our power to make sure that you are not in this business if you're unethical. So, up and up, do the right thing like it's always been, no matter what industry. And I think this video kind of works for any industry you're in. So to wrap this video up, is wholesaling ethical or unethical? Well, it really boiled down to the person that's doing the job, the task, or running the business. Is that person ethical or unethical? And if that person's not, then this business won't be. Nor is any industry that person ever gonna be in. People lose their licenses every single day, and I mean it. Police get fired. People in healthcare get fired every single day because they do unethical things. that doesn't need to taint the entire industry. So it's up to us as ethical people to make sure that our industry stays ethical, and that's investors all across the world. So just remember, be ethical and you'll always be able to sleep at night. And will you do it to your grandma? And if you won't, then don't. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, you know what to do. Click the like button, subscribe, turn the bell notification on, and share this with somebody else that may be thinking about doing deals that are not so ethical. All right, guys, I hope this has helped, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Let me stay focused. Let me stay focused. See, I think we went from
Cut.